The dinner rush had ended at Foster's kitchen, and Jake wiped down the counter with practiced ease. Outside the diner's windows, the twin suns of Eden Prime were setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. He loved this time of day when the colony world felt almost like Earth. Jake Foster wasn't a hero or an adventurer. He was just a cook who had saved enough credits to open a small diner on humanity's newest colony. His place wasn't fancy, just 12 tables, a long counter with 6 stools, and a kitchen where he made simple, honest food. The kind of place where miners grabbed breakfast before their shifts and families came for Sunday dinner. The bell above the door chimed as it opened. Jake looked up from cleaning the coffee machine, ready to tell whoever it was that the kitchen was closing in 5 minutes. But the words died in his throat. 2 figures stood in the doorway. They weren't human. That much was clear even in the fading light. Their skin seemed to shimmer like moonlight on water, shifting between pale blue and silver. Their eyes were too large for their faces, completely black except for tiny stars of light that danced in their depths. They were thin, too thin, and their clothes hung loose on their frames. The taller one stumbled as she stepped inside. Her companion, smaller and clearly younger, caught her arm. They both looked around the diner with a mixture of hope and fear. "Please," the taller one said. Her voice was strange, like several notes played at once on a piano. "We have traveled so far." Jake noticed things then. The way their hands shook. The dark circles under those strange, beautiful eyes. The way the smaller one kept blinking as if trying to stay focused. He had seen hunger before. This was starvation. "Come in," Jake said, moving around the counter. "Sit down before you fall down." He guided them to the nearest booth. The fake leather squeaked as they slid in. Up close, he could see more details. Their hair wasn't really hair at all, but something like fine crystal threads that caught the light. They smelled like rain and ozone. "We cannot pay," the smaller one whispered. "We spent our last credits on passage here." Jake was already pouring water into 2 glasses. "Didn't ask for payment, asked you to sit down." The taller alien straightened, trying to maintain some dignity despite her obvious exhaustion. "I am Lyra. This is my sister, Nova. We are—" She paused, searching for words. "We are lost." "Well, Lyra and Nova," Jake said, setting the water glasses down. "You're not lost anymore. You're in Foster's kitchen and nobody goes hungry here." Nova reached for the water with shaking hands. She drank deeply, then began to cough. Jake noticed, her skin flickering, the shimmer fading in places. "When did you eat last?" he asked. Lyra closed her eyes, calculating. 7 cycles. 7 of your days, I think. We had emergency rations on the transport, but they ran out. Jake's jaw tightened. 7 days without food. He moved toward the kitchen. "Stay put. I'll be right back." "Wait," Lyra called after him. "You don't know if your food is safe for us." Jake paused at the kitchen door. "You vegetarian?" The sisters exchanged a confused look. "We eat plant matter, yes," Nova said weakly. "Then we're good." Jake disappeared into the kitchen. He moved with purpose, heating the vegetable soup he'd made fresh that morning. While it warmed, he sliced bread. Real bread, baked that morning, not the synthetic stuff. He prepared a plate of roasted vegetables with herbs from his small garden out back. The colony import fees made earth spices expensive, but Jake grew his own basil, thyme, and rosemary. Through the service window, he watched the sisters. They sat close together, Lyra's arm around Nova's shoulders. They whispered in their own language, musical sounds he couldn't understand. But he understood. The tone, fear, exhaustion, and something else. Hope, maybe. Jake carried out the first tray carefully. The soup steamed in 2 large bowls and the smell of herbs filled the air. As he set it down, both sisters straightened, their large eyes growing even wider. "This is for us?" Nova asked. "Eat slow," Jake advised. "Your stomachs won't be ready for too much too fast. Start with the soup." Lyra picked up the spoon with careful movements as if it were made of precious metal. She tasted the soup, and her entire body seemed to relax. "It's warm," she said softly, "and it tastes like Like sunshine. Jake smiled despite himself. That's the basil. Grows well in Eden Prime soil. Nova took her first spoonful and actually moaned. It was such a human sound from an alien throat that Jake almost laughed. Instead, he went back for the bread and vegetables. As they ate, the change was remarkable. Their skin began to shimmer more brightly, like someone had turned up a dimmer switch. The stars in their eyes grew brighter. Color returned to their faces, if you could call the shifting blue-silver tones color. Between bites, they told him fragments of their story, the Zephyrian Empire, expanding through the outer systems. Their homeworld, a place called Celestia, caught in the path of conquest. The evacuation ships scattered to the cosmic winds. We were separated from our family group, Lyra explained, tearing off a piece of bread. The transport captain left us here. Said Eden Prime was safe, neutral. It is, Jake confirmed. Humans don't take sides in the outer conflicts. Nova looked up from her empty soup bowl. May I have more? Jake grinned. Coming right up. As he refilled their bowls, he wondered what tomorrow would bring. The colony administration would need to know about the refugees. There would be paperwork, probably. Questions about their legal status. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, he was just a cook feeding two hungry kids who happened to be from another world. The stars were fully out now, visible through the diner windows. Eden Prime had no moon, so the night sky was spectacular. Jake noticed the sisters kept glancing up at it as they ate. Looking for home? He asked gently. Lyra shook her head. Home is gone. We're looking for hope. Jake set down fresh bread. Well, you found dinner. That's a start. Nova smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from either of them. Yes, she agreed. That's a start. Jake watched the sisters eat their third helping of soup. Their movements were slower now, more careful. Good. That meant they were getting full. He'd seen enough hungry people to know the signs, the way they stopped guarding their food, how. Their shoulders relaxed. Tell me about your world, Jake said, sitting across from them with his own cup of coffee. The diner was quiet now, just the hum of the cooling units and distant sounds of the colony settling down for the night. Lyra set down her spoon and looked at her sister. Nova nodded. Celestia was beautiful, Lyra began. Not like your Earth, which we studied in school. Our world had 3 moons. The largest was pure white like snow. It made our nights bright. Our cities floated, Nova added, her voice stronger now. Crystal structures that sang in the wind, the sound. She closed her eyes, remembering. It was like music always playing. Jake leaned forward. Floating cities, how did that work? Our people have had abilities, Lyra explained. She held up her hand and Jake saw a faint glow around her fingers. We could work with energy, shape it. Our ancestors built the cities using this gift. Nova pushed her empty bowl aside. But we couldn't stop the Zephyrian war machines. Energy. Manipulation doesn't work well against plasma cannons and battle cruisers. Jake refilled their water glasses. How many of your people escaped? The sisters exchanged a look that made Jake's heart sink. We don't know, Lyra said finally. The evacuation was chaos. Ships leaving in all directions. Our parents put us on one transport, they took another. We were supposed to meet at the sanctuary world of Haven, but the transport captain was a coward, Nova finished, anger flashing in her strange eyes. He heard rumors of Zephyrian scouts near Haven, so he dumped us here instead, took the rest of the passengers somewhere else. Jake felt his own anger rise. Abandoning kids, even alien kids, in a strange place with no food or money. That was low. You report him to the authorities? Jake asked. With what proof? Lyra said tiredly. We're refugees. No credits, no connections. The port authority told us to wait in the processing center, but that could take weeks and they don't provide food. Jake stood up. Want some pie? Made it fresh this morning. Apple. Earth apples, not the synthetic kind. Nova's eyes widened. We studied earth fruits in school. Is it really made from actual apples? Well, sure is. Cost me a month's profit to get a shipment, but some things are worth it. Jake went to the display case, cut 2 generous slices, and warmed them slightly. The smell of cinnamon and sugar filled the diner. When he set the plates down, Nova actually gasped. "It smells like happiness," she said. Jake laughed, a real laugh, the first one all day. "Never heard it described that way, but I'll take it." The sisters ate the pie slowly, savoring each bite. Jake noticed how they copied his way of holding the fork, like they were learning human customs by watching. Smart kids. "So what's this gift you mentioned?" Jake asked. "The energy manipulation?" Lyra hesitated. "It's complicated. Our people were known as the Celestial Touched. We could work with cosmic energies, but not for weapons or violence. Our gifts were for creation, communication, understanding. That's why the Empire wanted to destroy us," Nova added. "We wouldn't build weapons for them, we couldn't. It's not in our nature." Jake thought about that. A whole species that literally couldn't make weapons. No wonder they'd been targeted. "But you can do other things?" he prompted. Lyra nodded. "Some can heal. Others can translate any language. Some can see truth or share memories or—" She stopped, looking uncertain. "Or," Jake encouraged. "Grant gifts," Nova whispered. "But only the eldest bloodlines could do that. And only to those who proved worthy through acts of pure kindness." Jake saw the meaningful look that passed between them but didn't push. These kids had secrets, that was fine. Everyone did. "More pie?" he offered instead. As they finished their dessert, Jake made a decision. "Look, I've got an apartment upstairs. Nothing fancy, just 2 bedrooms. You can stay there tonight. Tomorrow, we'll figure out the rest." Lyra shook her head. "We cannot accept more kindness. You've already given too much." "Says who?" Jake stood, starting to clear the plates. "Besides, the spare room's just collecting dust, and I need help in the kitchen tomorrow. Early breakfast rush is killer, and my usual helper called in sick." It was a lie. He handled breakfast fine on his own. But he saw the way Lyra straightened, the way Nova's eyes brightened. They needed to feel useful, not just like charity cases. "We would work hard," Nova said eagerly. "I'm sure you would. So it's settled. You stay upstairs, help with breakfast, and we take things day by day." Jake carried the dishes to the kitchen. "Come on, I'll show you the room." He led them through the back of the diner and up the narrow stairs. The apartment was simple, a living room with a worn couch, a small kitchen he rarely used, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. He opened the spare room door. Bed's already made up. Bathroom's down the hall. "There's some old clothes in the closet. Might be big on you, but they're clean." Lyra stood in the doorway, her shimmer intensifying. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why? Help us?" "You don't know us, we're not even human." Jake considered the question. "My grandmother used to say that kindness doesn't need a reason, it just needs an opportunity." He shrugged. "Plus, I've been where you are. Not the alien planet part, but the hungry and scared part. Someone helped me then. Figure it's my turn to pass it on." Nova walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "Jake Foster," she said formally. "Your kindness will not be forgotten." There was something in the way she said it, like a vow or a promise. But Jake just smiled and headed for the door. "Get some sleep. Breakfast shift starts at 5. I'll knock on your door at 4:30. As he closed the door behind him, he heard them talking in their musical language. He couldn't understand the words, but the tone was clear. Relief, gratitude, and something else. Hope. Back in his own room, Jake set his alarm and lay down. Tomorrow would bring questions, complications, probably trouble. The colony administration wouldn't be happy about unregistered aliens. But tonight, 2 scared kids were safe and fed. Sometimes that was enough. 3 days passed in a comfortable rhythm. The sisters woke early, helped Jake prepare for the breakfast rush, and learned the patterns of the diner. Nova turned out to have quick hands and a good memory for orders. Lyra moved gracefully between tables. Her shimmer dimmed enough that most customers assumed she was just wearing some kind of fancy skin treatment. On the 4th morning, Jake found them sitting at the counter before dawn, their faces serious. "We need to talk," Lyra said. Jake poured himself coffee and sat down. Sounds important. It is. Nova looked at her sister, then back at Jake. We haven't been honest with you. Jake sipped his coffee. About what? About who we are. What we are. Lyra took a deep breath. We told you our people were called the Celestial Touched. That's true, but we didn't tell you that our family was special even among our kind. Nova continued, our bloodline carries the strongest gift. We are the last of the Star Speakers, those who can grant abilities to others. Jake set down his cup. Grant abilities? When someone shows true kindness, real kindness, without expectation of reward, we can give them a gift, a permanent change. Lyra's shimmer grew brighter. It's not something we do lightly. The gift chooses the person as much as we do. And you've chosen, Nova said simply. The gift has chosen. Jake leaned back. Why me? I just fed you. Any decent person would have done the same. No, Lyra said firmly. They wouldn't. We tried 3 other places that night. They all turned us away. And you didn't just feed us. You gave us shelter, work, dignity. You treated us like family, not refugees. Nova reached across the counter and took her sister's hand. We want to give you something in return. Something that will help you help others. Jake felt the air in the diner change. It became charged, like the moment before a thunderstorm. The bee. Sister's eyes began to glow more brightly, stars swirling in the darkness. What kind of gift? Jake asked, though part of him already knew this was beyond his understanding. The gift of understanding, they said together. Their voices harmonized, creating that piano chord sound but stronger. The ability to truly communicate with any being, to see past words to meaning, to bring peace where there is conflict. The glow around them intensified. Jake felt warmth spreading through his chest like drinking hot soup on a cold day. The air shimmered, and he saw symbols floating between them. Not earth writing, not any alphabet he knew, but somehow he understood. Them, they spoke of connection, empathy, the bridges between minds and hearts. Do you accept this gift? Lyra asked. It cannot be undone. Jake thought about all the times he'd seen people fail to understand each other. The fights that started from simple misunderstandings. The loneliness of being unable to express what you really meant. He thought about the aliens who would come to Eden Prime, refugees like the sisters needing someone to truly hear them. Yes, he said. I accept. The sisters pressed their free hands to their hearts, then extended them toward Jake. Light flowed from their palms, not harsh or blinding, but soft like moonlight. It wrapped around Jake, sank into his skin, filled his mind. For a moment he understood everything. The music of Lyra's thoughts, the bright courage of Nova's spirit. He felt their gratitude, their hope, their fear of being alone. He sensed the echoes of their lost world, the singing cities, the 3 moons rising over crystal spires. Then it settled, became part of him. The diner looked the same, but Jake felt different. He looked at the sisters and saw not just their faces, but the emotions underneath. Exhaustion from running, relief at finding safety, love for each other that had kept them going. How do you feel? Nova asked. Jake opened his mouth to answer and realized he understood her true question. Not about physical sensation, but about the weight of the gift, the responsibility of it. Like I'm seeing clearly for the first time, he said. The bell above the door chimed. Jake turned to see his first customer of the day, old Pete Wilson, the mining supervisor who came in every morning for black coffee and eggs over easy. But now Jake saw more. He saw Pete's worry about the new equipment that wasn't working right, his fear that the younger workers thought he was too old for the job, his loneliness since his wife had died last year. Morning, Pete, Jake called out. Coffee's fresh. How about I make those eggs with some of that hot sauce you pretend you don't like but keep sneaking when you think I'm not looking? Pete's face transformed with surprise and pleasure. How did you? He sat at his usual stool. Yeah, that sounds good, Jake. Real good. As Jake cooked, he found himself saying, "You know, that new equipment's tricky, but I bet those young miners would appreciate learning from someone who's seen every type of drill malfunction there is. Experience like yours doesn't come from manuals." Pete straightened. "You think so?" "I know so." Jake slid the plate across. "Teaching's just another kind of leading, Pete." Throughout the morning it continued. Jake found himself knowing exactly what to say to the stressed colony administrator who needed someone to listen. He helped two arguing customers realize they actually agreed but were using different words for the same idea. He comforted a homesick teenager with stories that somehow touched exactly what she missed most about Earth. The sisters watched from their usual booth, satisfied smiles on their faces. During the afternoon lull, Jake sat with them. "This is incredible, but why do I feel like there's more to it?" Lyra nodded. "The gift grows with use. The more you understand others, the stronger it becomes. And sometimes," she paused, "sometimes it can stop wars, change histories. Our grandmother had this gift. She prevented 3 interstellar conflicts just by helping the right people understand each other," Nova added softly. "But she said the real power wasn't in stopping big conflicts. It was in the small moments, the daily kindnesses, the bridges, built one conversation at a time." Jake looked around his simple diner. It didn't seem like a place where history could change, but then he thought about all the different species who would come through Eden Prime, all the opportunities for misunderstanding, for fear, for conflict. "So what happens now?" he asked. "Now," Lyra said, "we keep working. We stay here if you'll have us, and we watch how one man with the right gift can change things." "Starting small," Nova added. "One meal, one conversation at a time." Jake smiled. "I can do that. But first, let's eat. I'm thinking soup, and maybe pie." The sisters laughed, and Jake realized he could hear the joy in it, the relief, the feeling of finding home after being lost. It was a good sound, a sound of beginning. 6 months passed. Foster's kitchen changed from a simple diner into something the colony had never seen before. Word spread through the spaceport, then beyond. Aliens of all species began stopping by, not just for food, but for the strange, human who could truly understand them. Jake stood behind his counter one busy afternoon, watching the unusual mix of customers. At table 3, a family of Rigelians ate soup with their tentacles. Near the window, 2 Altarian traders shared stories over coffee. In the corner booth, a group of human miners sat with their Proximan shift supervisor, laughing at jokes that crossed species barriers. Nova moved between tables with practiced ease. Her shimmer had grown stronger these past months, and customers barely noticed anymore. Lyra worked the register, her gift for languages helping her chat with everyone who came in. "Jake," Nova whispered as she passed. "The booth in the back. Those are Zephyrians." Jake looked. 3 beings sat hunched over their meals, trying to be invisible. They wore civilian clothes, but Jake's gift showed him the truth. These were soldiers, tired, scared, far from home. Their empire was losing the war it had started, and they were deserters. Jake walked over with the coffee pot. "Need a refill?" The largest Zephyrian looked up, his 4 eyes narrowing. "We have credits. We pay." "Didn't ask about payment," Jake said mildly. "Asked about coffee." He saw their fear, not just of being caught, but something deeper. They were young, probably drafted into a war they didn't understand. The middle one had a scar across his face, still healing. The smallest kept his lower arms tucked tight against his body, a sign of Zephyrian anxiety. "We should go," the scarred one muttered. "Finish your meal first," Jake said. Through his gift, he felt their hunger, their exhaustion. "Nobody's going to bother you here." The large one studied Jake's face. "You know what we are." "I know you're hungry and tired. That's what matters in my place." Jake went back to the counter, but kept aware of them. An hour later, as they prepared to leave, the scarred one approached the register. "Why didn't you call the authorities?" he asked quietly. Jake met his eyes. "Because I could see you're just kids who want to go home. War's ending anyway. You're Empire is pulling back. No point in ruining more lives. The Zephyrian's 4 eyes widened. How could you know this? I understand people, Jake said simply. Even people with 4 eyes and scales. The deserters left, but the next day more came, then more. Within a week, Jake's diner had become neutral ground, a place where former enemies could eat without fear. The change brought attention. Good and bad. This is irregular, Administrator Hobbs said, standing stiffly by the counter. You're harboring enemy combatants. I'm serving food to paying customers, Jake corrected. Behind Hobbs, he could see fear. Fear of his superiors, fear of making the wrong choice, fear of the paperwork if something went wrong. The war may be winding down, but protocols exist for a reason. Hobbs tapped his datapad. I should shut you down. Jake leaned forward. Carl, he said, using the administrator's first name. I know you're worried about the quarterly review. I know District is breathing down your neck about the refugee situation. But think about this. My diner is keeping the peace better than a dozen security patrols. No fights, no incidents, just people eating together. Hobbs blinked. How did you know about the review? I pay attention, Jake said. Look around. When was the last time you saw Rigelians and Proximans sharing a table? Or humans and Zephyrians talking instead of shooting? Hobbs looked. At table 6, a human child was showing a young Altarian how to use a fork. Near the door, 2 former enemies, a Zephyrian officer and a Celestian refugee, were quietly talking over tea. I don't understand how you do it, Hobbs admitted. Jake smiled. Good food, safe space, and really listening when people talk. Hobbs left without shutting down the diner. But bigger attention was coming. A week later, a diplomatic convoy arrived. 3 sleek ships landed at the spaceport, and a delegation of officials from various worlds walked into Foster's kitchen. Leading them was Ambassador Chen from Earth, flanked by representatives from the Galactic Council. Jake recognized the badges and uniforms. These were the people who negotiated treaties, who decided the fate of worlds. Mr. Foster, Ambassador Chen said, we've heard remarkable things about your establishment. Jake wiped his hands on his apron. Just a diner, ma'am. Coffee's fresh if you want some. A Rigelian diplomat spoke up, his tentacles moving in what Jake recognized as a respectful gesture. We hear former enemies eat together here, that old conflicts dissolve over soup. People get along better when they're not hungry, Jake said, and when someone actually listens to them. The delegation exchanged looks. Ambassador Chen stepped forward. The Zephyrian Empire has agreed to peace talks, but they insist on a neutral location. They've requested... She paused, as if hardly believing her own words. They've requested your diner. Jake nearly dropped the coffee pot. My diner? For peace talks? The commander of their forces was once a deserter who ate here, the Rigelian explained. He says this is the only place he trusts. Jake looked around his small diner. 12 tables, a worn counter, pictures of Earth on the walls. It didn't look like a place where wars ended. Lyra and Nova stood by the kitchen door, their faces shining with pride. They nodded encouragingly. All right, Jake said finally. But I have conditions. No weapons. No guards inside. Everyone eats. I don't care if you're signing treaties, you're going to try my pie. And you treat my regular customers with respect. They still need their breakfast. Ambassador Chen smiled. The first real smile Jake had seen from her. Agreed. The talks begin next week. As the delegation left, Jake felt the weight of what was happening. His small diner was about to host the most important peace negotiation in recent history. You're ready for this, Nova said softly, appearing at his elbow. Am I? It's just a diner. I just cook food. Lyra joined them. Remember what? Our grandmother said. Real change happens one conversation at a time. You've been practicing for 6 months. Jake looked at his simple diner, at the mix of species eating together, at the 2 alien sisters who had become his family. Maybe they were right. Maybe peace didn't need grand halls and formal ceremonies. Maybe it just needed a safe place, good food, and someone who could help people understand each other. Well, he said, I better make more pie. The morning of the peace talks, Jake woke at 3 instead of 4. He found Lyra and Nova already in the kitchen, preparing ingredients. Big day, Nova said, her shimmer bright with nervous energy. Just another day serving food, Jake replied, but his hands shook slightly as he measured coffee. Through his gift, he felt the weight of expectation from his friends. Hope and fear mixed together. By sunrise, security forces had cordoned off the street. Diplomatic ships filled the spaceport. But inside Foster's kitchen, Jake kept things normal. Regular customers got their usual orders. Pete Wilson sat at his regular stool, eating eggs with hot sauce. "Don't let those fancy folks change your place," Pete said. "This diner matters more than their meeting rooms ever will." At exactly 9:00, the delegations arrived. The Zephyrian group entered first. Military officials in formal uniforms, their scales polished to shine. Jake recognized Commander Vex, the former deserter who had eaten here months ago. His 4 eyes found Jake and showed a mix of respect and gratitude. The Alliance delegation came next. Humans, Rigelians, Proximans, Altarians, and others. Ambassador Chen led them, her face carefully neutral. Jake noticed the tension in her shoulders, the worry in her diplomatic smile. "Welcome to Foster's kitchen," Jake said. "Breakfast is served. Coffee's fresh." The group stood awkwardly until Jake started pouring coffee. "Commander Vex, you still take yours black? Ambassador Chen, cream and 2 sugars, right?" His casual tone broke the ice slightly. The delegations moved to opposite sides of the diner. Jake had pushed tables together to make 2 long surfaces. Between them was his counter, neutral ground. "I suggest we eat first," Jake said. "Hard to negotiate on empty stomachs." Nova and Lyra served breakfast. Simple fare, but good. Eggs, toast, fresh fruit, Jake's famous home-fried potatoes. At first, everyone ate in silence. Then Jake heard murmurs of appreciation. Food was universal. Good food even more so. "These potatoes," Commander Vex said suddenly. "They remind me of tubers from Zephyr Prime. My mother made them similar." A human diplomat looked up. "My grandmother had a recipe like this too, from Earth's Ireland." Jake smiled. Food was breaking barriers already. The formal talks began after breakfast. Treaties were discussed, borders debated, reparations argued. Jake stayed behind his counter, refilling coffee, watching faces. His gift showed him the real conversations happening beneath diplomatic words. The Zephyrians felt shame about their empire's aggression, fear about their future, worry for their colonies. The Alliance members carried anger about losses, desire for justice, but also exhaustion from fighting. By noon, talks had stalled. Voices rose. Old angers surfaced. "You destroyed 12 worlds," shouted a Celestian representative. "Your blockade starved our outer colonies," a Zephyrian countered. Jake stepped forward. "Lunch break," he announced firmly. "Nobody makes good decisions hungry." He served soup. His vegetable soup, the same recipe he'd given the sisters that first night. As delegates ate, Jake moved between the groups. To the Celestian representative, he said quietly, "I know you lost. Family. The grief is like a hole that won't fill, but their deaths won't be honored by more killing." To the Zephyrian who had shouted, he murmured, "Your nephew was on those colony ships. You blame yourself for supporting the war, but you can help end it now." Both delegates stared at him. "How do you know these things?" "I listen," Jake said simply. "And I understand." The afternoon session was different. When delegates spoke, they began to hear each other. Jake moved quietly through the room, bridging gaps with small comments, gentle observations. His gift grew stronger with each connection made. By evening, something remarkable happened. Commander Vex stood up. "We were wrong," he said simply. "The Zephyrian Empire pursued conquest out of fear. Fear of being weak, fear of being left behind. We caused terrible suffering." He looked at the Celestian representative. "I cannot bring back your worlds, but I can promise we will help rebuild what we destroyed." The Celestian stood too. And we must acknowledge, our alliance's blockade went too far. Civilians suffered. That was not justice. One by one, representatives began speaking truth instead of diplomatic phrases. Jake felt the shift in the room. Understanding replacing anger, hope replacing fear. By midnight, they had a framework for peace, not perfect but real. Lyra and Nova watched from the kitchen doorway, tears streaming down their faces. Our grandmother was right, Lyra whispered. One person with the gift in the right place. As delegations prepared to leave, Ambassador Chen approached Jake. This shouldn't have worked, she said. A diner isn't a proper venue for diplomacy. You're not a trained negotiator, but somehow. People are the same everywhere, Jake said. They want to be heard. They want to feel safe. Give them that, and they usually figure out the rest. Commander Vex joined them. This place will be remembered. Your diner will be in history books. Jake shook his head. I just want it to be a place where anyone can get a good meal. In the months that followed, the peace held. More negotiations happened, but always at Foster's kitchen. The diner expanded, not in size but in meaning. It became a symbol. Other establishments began copying Jake's approach. Neutral ground restaurants opened on other worlds. The concept spread. Safe places where enemies could meet, eat, and begin to understand each other. Jake kept cooking. The sisters stayed, making the diner their home. Regular customers mixed with diplomats and refugees. Pete Wilson still came for his morning eggs, now often sharing his table with beings from distant stars. 1 year after feeding 2 hungry alien girls, Jake stood in his kitchen, watching the breakfast rush. A Zephyrian child played with a human toddler near the window. Celestian refugees shared recipes with Proximan traders. Laughter mixed with the clink of dishes. Nova appeared beside him. Do you ever regret it? The gift? The changes? Jake looked at his diner. Worn booths, scratched tables, walls covered with pictures from a dozen worlds. No, he said. This is what it was always meant to be. Lyra joined them. A place where all are welcome. Where none leave hungry. Jake finished. Above the door, those words were now etched in 30 languages. But Jake knew the real message wasn't in the words. It was in every meal served, every conversation bridged, every moment of understanding fostered. The galaxy had been changed by a simple act of kindness, feeding 2 hungry strangers without asking for payment. The ripples of that moment continued spreading, touching systems Jake would never see, changing histories he would never know. But Jake didn't think about that. He had pies to bake, coffee to brew, people to feed, and that was enough.